So we got our app currently working and we're displaying the unit names. So we finished iteration 3. One thing before we move to iteration 4 is you probably noticed that the list of units is coming out in no particular order. So you may actually think, why don't we order? So I'll add an iteration 4 here and say sort the unit names on display. And once you say and reorder the other iterations, so now we added this one iteration that were not there and we discovered it. This is a change of a scope. In the app development process, a scope has changed here. So two things to point out. One, you should be aware of what they call scope creep, that every time you do something, you think of something else, and the project, instead of becoming a 2 weeks project, become a 4 week, a 5 week, a 6 week. Or if you're working with a client, that every time you show the client something, they add another feature. So that's called the scope creep, that the scope keeps changing and you end up losing because you're not controlling the scope. So that's on one end. On the other end, you want to respect the fact that vision evolve. When you start developing the app, you do not know what it will look like. You cannot fully tell and determine at that time what everything should look like. So the purpose of the iterative process is to give stops along the way to enable the vision to evolve. So you want to relax the original scope a little bit. So you can't come to something like that and say, hey, the unit names are being displayed, but no particular order, we need to sort them. You can't be rigid and say, but that was not defined in the scope, we cannot do anything about it. No, you need to allow that. At the same time, you want to manage that within a certain parameters, so you don't get into a scope creep and the cost of the project become beyond what's expected. So let's think about this sort step. So now we have iteration 4, sort the unit names, and we'll do this quickly. The problem formulation is sort based on what? You can sort alphabetically in ascending or descending order. So the names that are first in the alphabet are listed first, then the other names. And we can start with that. You can also sort based on the conversion factor. So here is our table. Where is it? Here it is. So you can sort alphabetically based on the unit name, or you can sort based on the unit that has the smallest, from a smallest conversion factor to largest conversion factor, because they're not the same as the alphabetic. So there might be different ways to sort. And then in each factor you sort upon, are you sorting ascending or descending from larger to smaller or smaller to large? And then you have your testing scenarios is unit names displayed in the order expected. In the solution formulation, there's no change in the model and no change in the view, but the controller, there will be a change. So we need to add ability to sort the names. So when should we do that? When should we sort the unit names? At the or when the view loads. So when the view loads and we extract the unit names from the file, at that time we want to sort them. And we'll sort them using a sort function. So let's take a look when we get to implementation, solution implementation. We want to review the sort capabilities of the NS array and then select a sort function, and then define sort criteria, and then test and commit. So let's go to the API documentation and put the NS array. Oops, wrong one. So the NS array, here is information about it. Lots of information. And then there's initializing, querying the array, finding objects in the array, sending messages to elements in the array, comparing arrays, driving a new one, and then sorting. So there are different ways of sorting an array. And all of them, they return an array that lists the different receiving elements. And each one of them, as you can see, returns an array that comes from a comparator or using a selector that lists the receiving array element in ascending order as determined by the comparison method specified by this selector. If you click on those, it tells you more information about each one of them. A selector, meaning a function, identifies the method to return. The elements should return ordered ascending if the receiving array is smaller than the argument, or ordered descending, or or order the same for the return value. So here is an example of a function call that you create a function with this information. In the array, in Swift, and so on. So there are many sort functions that we can use from the array itself. And if I use the unit names dot and type sort, you'll see there are many functions, and one of them was not part of the NS array, the sorted arrays. There's one called sorted, and the sorted it receives, you define a function that receives the two elements that the array is attempting to compare, and you return a boolean of a true or false. So that's the one that I'm going to use, and I think it's the easiest, but the comparison result one will be easy. Many of them actually be easy. You can choose or play around with them. But if I use the sorted one, it shows here that you need to use a function, or a function, either a function defined by name or a function, anonymous function called closures, that receives two parameters of type any, which is any object, and returns a boolean. So if I create a function, sort unit names, and say I'm gonna define that function to have two parameters of type any. So I will say first item of type any and second item of type any, and that function will return a boolean exactly like it is defined by the hint here. And here is the block of the function. So this is a function that has a name. I can then, instead of this, put the name of the function, sort unit names. And I selected it, so it typed. I don't need to type any of that because it will be sent automatically. Sort by sort unit names. All right. So now this unit names is gonna sorted by function. It was going to return an array. So I need to assign that array to the same one. So I'm overriding the array. So I'm sorting the array, the unit names, and rewriting the original unit names with the sorted ones. You can say, no, I'm gonna make a new one, so you can do that. So you can make this a temporary array that has all the keys, and then sort them, and the unit names will have the final one. Now the sorted by returns an array of type similar to the all keys. So I have to do something similar to this and convert to the as ns array. So now how do you sort? So now we figured out the function. Now you define here the criteria that you want the sort. What you need to return is a boolean. The way this works is that the array goes through the elements and compare the first two elements adjacent to one another and reorder them based on the sort criteria. So if I want to say that the first element is in the right place, then I should, like if the first element need to be in the right place, then I should return true. If not, then I return a false. Or I can make a comparison and return based on that comparison. So what is the first and the second? These are the elements that are being compared. So let's take a look at the array. So this is our array, inch, feet, meter, kilometer, and mile. So it will take the inch and the feet and say which one should be before the other. And then you, based on the criteria you have, if I'm using alphabetical, so the feet should be before the inch, then it should return false. If I'm if I'm going ascending, if I'm going descending, then I should be returning true. So to compare the first and the second, I need to first retrieve them from the generic type any to the string type. So I'll say let first unit or first name equal first, and then convert that first into the string type. So that converts from any to string. And then I'll go with the second name, and then I'll say the second, which is the parameter I have here, and then convert from the any type to the string type. Then let's say I want to order them in an ascending order, so I'll say return the comparison result of first name greater than second name. So if the first name is greater than the second name, this comparison result will be true. So it's returning true, meaning leave them in this current location. If I want the go with descending, then if it is false, then it will switch them. If I want to go with descending, then I'll use first name less than second name. So let's see what this will do to the names. So it sorted the miles, meters, kilometer, inch, and then feet. So it's sorted from the later in the alphabet to the beginning of the alphabet, which is the descending order. If I want the opposite, I can just switch this from the greater than to the less than operator and run again. So now it is the unit that's in the beginning of the alphabet first, then the unit at the end of the alphabet. But what if I don't want to sort alphabetically at all? I want sort based on the smaller unit versus the larger unit. So how do I know which unit is smaller and which unit is larger? In comparison to inches, the unit with a conversion factor to inch small, that's the smallest unit. And the unit with a conversion factor large, that's the largest unit. So in order to compare based on that, I need to retrieve the conversion factor. I have the unit name, which represents the key in the dictionary. I can use the unit name to retrieve the value and then compare based on the value. So I can, before I make the comparison, or maybe I can comment this out here and add something else. So I'll say I want to retrieve let conversion factor 1 equal. I use the dictionary, and then I want to get the number for key, or the value for key, and the value, as you can see, returns as any. And but there is also float for key, I believe. No, nope, not here. So value for key, and then we're gonna need to make conversion. So value for key, and what is my key is the first name. That's the name of the unit. And then I need to convert that to a float, which is the decimal, because they're gonna be a decimal number. I think I need to add this. So that's my first conversion factor. And let's get the second conversion factor. And units.value. So I'm retrieving the actual value by providing the name of the unit that I want to retrieve the value for, and then converting that to the actual numeric type of that unit. Then in this case, I can return the comparison of the factor 1 greater than factor 2. So this is going from the larger unit to the smaller unit. Because if the first unit conversion factor is greater than the second unit conversion factor, it's going to keep them the same, which will put them in a larger to smaller order, or descending order. So now the unit with the larger is first. If you want the smaller unit first, then you just switch from a greater than to less than. So this is the smaller unit, the inch, feet, meter, kilometer, and miles. And it is sorted here. So this is how we sort the unit names. We used a sort function. I used this one, sorted by, because it allows you to enter a name. And then this is the function name. And we did not specify parameter names here because they are passed automatically as the two units in the two parameters in the two elements in the array, and then you retrieve them with the corresponding type, and then decide if you want to sort alphabetically, that's what you do, and comment out the rest. Or if you want to sort based on the smaller unit versus the larger unit, then you add that code. If you have something else, then you include it here in this particular function. So we learned how to add a function, make its name. We learned some logic here. It's called the comparison operators, the true and false, and the returning type. We learned how to retrieve a value for a conversion factor. So that's the iteration 4. Iteration 5 is very straightforward now that we have done everything we've done, displaying the desired unit. So we have one picker view. I need another one next to it. But the second picker view is gonna work exactly the same. as the first one, meaning that it needs to display the same units in the same order. Why the same order? Because that's what the user will see. Well, you don't have to, but there's nothing that prevents them both from being exactly the same order. So if I want this to display exactly the same things as the other one, I already defined how I want everything to be displayed for the first controller in using this data source and delegate, the custom controller as a data source and delegate. If I make the custom controller the data source and delegate of the second picker view by connecting it as a data source and connecting it as a delegate, pressing the control key and connecting. So now the controller, if I right click, the controller serves as a data source to the second picker view, and data source to the first picker view, a delegate to the second picker view, and a delegate to the first picker view. When each picker view tries to present its data, it will look for the number of components and give you here the picker view, and then look for the number of rows and give you which picker view is calling it, and then ask for the title and ask for which picker view it is. If you want to distinguish the two, you can tag each picker view. There is a property here called the tag in the attribute inspector. Here is the tag. It's an index, so you can give this picker view a tag of 1 and this one a tag of 2, and then do some comparison to figure out which one. In the next module, we're going to learn about the if statement, and you can use something like that to say, if it is the picker view on the left, do that. If it's the picker view on the right, do that. Or you can have another class altogether that will serve as the data source and the delegate of the second picker view. So let's test that. So it's taken longer since we added the picker view and made two other connections to the picker view. If this works, this is the first part of the project without the sorting, actually, although we did the sorting, so you should do the sorting. But the first part is displaying the names without the sorting. The second part will be including the sorting and the conversion. So now here are the two picker views. Each one has the list. Both of them are ordered because both of them are actually reading from the same data source and reading from the same delegate, so they will produce exactly the same result, which is fine. This way the user will say, I want to convert from feet to inch, and then hit the button and the app do the conversion, which is what we're going to do in the second iteration. So here tested, it works. So let's commit and push. So added ability to sort the unit names and added second picker view. This completes part 1 and of the project, and completes iterations 4 and 5. And then push to remote, commit and push. We pushed a couple of times, and I want to show you something here. When you push, you can go to settings, and under collaborators, under collaborators, you can add a collaborator. So if you search for me with my ID, you can add me as a collaborator on your project, and this will allow me to download your project, and I can see what you've done or contribute to it if you run into any issues. So that's basically it, and next video we'll do the actual conversion process in iteration 6.